Hey, how you doing? Let's go on through it. Okay. This is called "Embracing Your Inner Greed," and from Jeremy Silverman's "Reassess Your Chess." So we're going to. This is a game 13 from Spassky versus Fischer. So this is the 13th. Perfect. We get a sip, and then we'll read about it. It is clear that giving up material takes courage, but the same courage is often needed to take material. So there's courage to give up material, and there's courage to take material. So there's courage because sometimes when you're looking at taking it, you're like, I could be checked here, and you're like, huh, is it worth taking it and getting checked, basically checked by your opponent? And then you have to sometimes calculate a little further out and find out that the check is actually nothing but it's a hollow check, which means the check's not going to really hurt you. You'll just run away and be safe, and you'll be up maybe a pawn or an exchange. Do you know what I mean? So you have to always, or maybe even a whole piece. So you just have to do your due diligence to calculate it out. Boris is white and Bobby Fischer is black. Oops, wrong bishop. It's c4, not f4. Just put the bishop on an a2 to g8 diagonal. Bishop g7. Knight bd7. Or bd2, I mean. Castles, and then pawn to h3. This stops the bishop from actually coming in here. The bishop can't come here anymore and pin the knight to the queen. So that's kind of the idea. Also, later on, the knight has a route to get to g4, which will later on allow for an attack to happen. I've actually seen many games where g3 looks like it has one purpose of stopping the bishop, but in reality it allows your knight to reroute. Then the other one could actually come in too. And then you could just flood the pieces into the king side that way. So a5, Spassky's got to kind of attack on the queen side because Bobby's showing his intent to attack on the king side. And so Bobby stops. Spassky wanted to go a4 and try to gain a tremendous amount of counterplay on the queen side. D takes, D takes. This is what Jeremy Silman says. Some people consider this game to be the greatest of all time, though our forces will be on the initial greed, not the later brilliance. Let me see, is that right? Oh, focus. So though our focus will be on the initial greed, not the later brilliance. In this position, Fischer is putting some pressure against the space gaining e5. Pawn through its though it's easily defended, oddly the most accessible target. Remember that something is only weak if you can bring pieces to bear on it. So only something's weak. Like if you have a lot of holes in your position, but none of your opponent's pieces could get there, then those aren't really considered weaknesses, even though they potentially look like outposts. If none of your opponent's pieces can get there, then they're not weaknesses. That's what Jeremy Silman is trying to say. Is the pawn on a4 and knight ac5 combined with queen to e8, and if needed bishop d7. So basically what he's trying to say here is if you try to attack this pawn here, the knight could come to c6. The queen could come out to let me see here. Let me see. Is it b? Oh, a4. Okay, that's my thing there. Okay. The rook on. Oops. Whoa. Okay. Hey, I didn't know I could do another color. Huh. So I can actually do red. Cool. Okay. Let me see. Is the a4 pawn weak? Basically, you have knight a6. Oops. Knight a6 to c5, combined with queen to e8, and then bishop d7. This is for black, but capturing it would either entail a loss of time, will give white indefinite compensation in the form of central space and development. As black tosses everything at a4, white will be getting the rest of his army out. In this example, we aren't looking at the safe compensation of a weak pawn. Instead, we're going to see a player create it's a divergent imbalance, basically a change in the imbalances. The trade of time development for material. The trade of time development / development for material in an effect to sharpen the play and give him a shot at victory. Naturally, this approach can lead to joy or despair actually, depending on whether the bout of greed is positionally or tactically justified, and on which player can handle the tension better. So after this move here, knight a6, Bobby Fischer exclaimed. Remember, Bobby Fischer sees that this pawn here is a target. He sees that this pawn's a target. And so even though at the cost of time, he's going to try to win that pawn. Spassky castles. Knight c5. Queen e2. Queen e8. That goes after the pawn. Knight e4. B takes a4. Bishop takes a4. Knight takes a4. Black has won the pawn and is doing well. But White's kingside space advantage will allow him to get some play of his own. The rest of the game is an amazing creative achievement by the 11th world champion. Rook e1, knight b6, bishop d2, a4, bishop g5. h6, bishop h4, excuse me, bishop h4, bishop f5. Bobby's actually able to unwind his pieces, and remember what we talked about. If you can unwind your pieces and still hold on to the pawn. Oh, who's white and black again? White is Boris Spassky, and I'll flip the board. Black is Bobby Fischer, and Bobby Fischer just won a pawn, and he's starting to unwind his pieces. We've learned in the couple lessons prior that if you are, I think it was yesterday, that if you can gain material and unwind your position, I believe it was Svidler. It was a Svidler game yesterday. That Svidler did a peace sacrifice. It was an exchange sacrifice, and he played the wrong move at one point, but he could have saved it in another point, and then kind of played another inaccurate move, a double question mark move, which lost the game for him. His opponent was able to unwind the position. But if you can justify a sacrifice, or if you can take material, which is the inner greed that Jeremy Silman's talking about, and you can unwind your position. I know I'm saying unwind a lot, but it's very, very important if you can. And you then can use your extra material in the end game and potentially win. And sometimes you're blessed enough to have enough material that it throws your opponent's concentration off, and they play a couple inaccurate moves which allow you to even win more material. I've had that happen before, where the loss of material gets into an opponent's mind. It may even be just one or two pawns, but for some reason it distracts them from them seeing a better move. And it was a fork that if they didn't see, I could have set up this other move, and my opponent didn't see it because of the lack. I took like two pawns. This was a long time ago, long time ago. But it brought this game up to me. I forgot the gentleman's name that I played, but it was so cool because by missing that, I set up a so beautiful tactic. But if he would have seen that tactic, I still would have been up an exchange, but it wouldn't have been as beautiful of a game. But it's cool sometimes when you get to look at games from like Grandmasters, and you get to reflect on prior games that you played. It was it's and that's kind of how it works. Sometimes you get the Lord Jesus allows you to have those type of moments. It's cool. Do you remember this game? Oh no, 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 no! I didn't remember this game. It just brought to when there was compensation being when Bobby took the pawn. It kind of reminded me of a similar game that I played. And when I was first beginning, sometimes you can it brings back those memories. It's some of the moves that when you go over your older games, but when before basically learned more and you got more mature as a player, you kind of get to giggle at some of your positions. Josh Waskins on grad, I think it's grad. It was one of his things that he taught. It was Grandmaster Chess. It's an older chess CD, and he showed a game in the psychology of chess where if he would have just taken this piece, the piece was on pre, the game would have been over. And he was kind of laughing at it. He says, looking at it now from, because he was young during that time, he says, looking at it now from the perspective that he was during, I think it was like 2007. And he says it's kind of funny to see how he missed that, but he says he still was able to outplay his opponent. But it's just interesting, I guess. I don't want to, prolong this game out, but I mean, it's just fun when you get to relive some of those moments. It's a joy, let's just say. So G4, Boris is attacking the bishop. So I know you as chess players probably have those moments of memory when you go back and you get to see the beauty of some of the games that you play. Sometimes the memories of those losses are really hurtful, though. But that's how you improve is by getting better at chess. So you have to learn, and losing is part of that learning process as much as it is painful. Because then you get to find out where you went awry, and you can fix it at that point and get better. Like Jeremy Silman once had a problem. This was from yesterday's lesson. He was concerned about trading off his queen for like two bishops and a knight, or two knights and a bishop, even though the compensation of the material would be better for him. He'd basically get more out of it and then potentially even win. At certain point, at one game he lost because he didn't do that, and so he made up his mind, even though it was painful at first. Excuse me. Even though it was painful at first, he would do the sacrifices, and that's more likely how he went from 2100, and he didn't say how high he went to, but he went above his 2100 level when he would just stay at 2100. And he said after that, he got more comfortable with sacrifices and exchanging the queen for like three, maybe a rook, a knight, and a pawn if it gave him a better position. And so he said he just had to get over that was one thing that always haunted him. And when he matured as a chess player and got over that, it really accelerated his understanding. Oops, I put it on the wrong spot. And so gotta always strive to find out where your weakness is, even if it is a painful thing at the moment. You have to, I guess, just do it. I guess that's the best example, I guess I could say. And the super grandmasters didn't get good because without having a lot of losses. So it's one of those things they had to lose to learn, I guess, sometimes. But sometimes you can win a game and still, hey, play okay. You can win a game and still learn a lot from it too. So you don't have to just always lose to learn. I've learned a lot from some games. What I do is I usually play over what my opponent, I would be my opponent versus me, and then I would see where my opponent went wrong and why I was able to convert it into a win. And then I learned that way. I played as my opponent. and that's a good way to take a lot or a win from yourself that you get as when you win, and learn from it. And then sometimes you can take it and learn why how you won. You can actually find out what thought pattern you were using during the time that you won that game. And wow, Boris is trying to see how Boris found an outpost. He's white. I better flip the board because this is kind of a little confusing. I don't want to confuse. Sometimes it's confusing. I'll just turn it to white so you can see. Bobby's black, so we're just analyzing it through black size. But I know white sometimes is more appealing, and it'll help, because you're going A1 to A8 and H1 to A8, H8. This actually is an interesting move, and you have to have courage here. This takes courage, and I want to give you an opportunity. You are Bobby Fischer. You're black. What move would you play here? Take your time, and it will. I'm just going to put it out there because I you do this to my YouTube account, Chess Cruncher TV. So if you want to stop now and then look at it, stop the tape and or the recording, and then you work it out over the board, then come back, or if you want to watch, then you can continue with us. But I'm going to give it to you for a little bit of time, so I'll be right back. But look at it, you're black to move. Find the incredible move that Bobby Fischer played. I'll be right back. Yes. There you go. Good job. You're right on. Play okay. Perfect. And if you also, my viewers, uh, saw the same thing as play okay, perfect. This is the move that really changed the basically tempo of the game. And then after pawn takes, let me see, it's 30, so bishop takes c, and then b takes c, and f6 to basically make this bishop a non-effective piece at all. And you do have a passed pawn, so that is as good as well. So g5 here, h takes g, f takes g, and then Bobby locks it down with f5. And by this move, I gotta say, I'd almost say that this f5 move won the game for Bobby. I know the taking the queen and that tactic was wonderful and everything, but shutting down all the play that Spassky has on the king side is what sealed the victory, in my opinion. And it just now Bobby's gonna slowly but steadily make it so his passed a pawn will come down the board, or he'll use it for compensation purposes that'll help with him getting something for the pawn. Maybe he'll get a better position and win that way positionally. But this really shut down all counterplay for Boris. F5 is a wonderfully played move, I think. Bishop g3. He has to also hold on to the weakness of d6. It's overextended, so the pawns on d6 is overextended, and that's why bishop g3. He's gonna have to babysit that pawn. King f7. This allows for play on both sides of the board. King f7 covers the e6 pawn, which allows the light square bishop to move, and then basically he can shift over a rook to h8 and then put it on h7 and then shift the other rook over if he wanted to. then take scope on h3, even at the cost of a4. Remember, compensation. You have to think compensation, and not not think greed. Sometimes you could take material, but just remember, if you trade it back for checkmate, that's what it's about. So 34. Knight e5 check. Knight takes e5. Bishop takes e5. The interesting thing is they both have passed pawns. The only difference is this passed pawn on a6 is an outside passed pawn, and the passed pawn that Boris has is more close to the king. So in theory, the king could actually, after the rook moves, come in by itself, barricade the pawn. Yeah, good T. Yeah. Then b5. Now the pawn's supported. And also, I guess that's another perk that Bobby has too, is he has a pawn that is supporting his pass pawn, where Boris has an overextended pass pawn that doesn't have the c pawn to come protect it. Rook f1. And potentially, if Boris could, he would try to get something like that in there, but Bobby's not going to allow that to happen. He's got rook 8. Remember we talked about rook h7, rook h7, and then the other rook slides over. That's kind of what Bobby's going to do, and that'll actually lock down at least one rook to the protection of h3. Bishop f6. Whoa, hello. What did I do wrong here? Why didn't he take the rook? That's a puzzlement right there. I think it's because he would have too many passed pawns. Because Bobby also actually has 3 passed pawns. Interesting. Maybe Boris missed that. A3. Rook f4. A2. C4. Bishop takes c4. d7. Bishop d5. Hold on. Oops. Bishop d5. Hold on. There you go. King g3. Rook a3. Wait a second. Rook a3. Check. c3. h2 a8. Rook h4. e5. That can't be. Could that be right? Oh, I got it. He can't take. That's actually a protected piece. Because if he took here, he'd get a queen. And even if he played that, the rook would take. And even if the rook took here, you have queen check. Not check there. Sorry, queen check. Actually, rook takes here. And then the king comes up, check, king there, checkmate. Oh, it's not checkmate yet. So maybe check, 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 and then checkmate that way. That works. Okay. Can't take there. So 45. Hold on, what am I missing here? 44. Oh, h7 check. That's the move. Now I'm back on track again. Kind of wet askew there. drink. Beautiful play. He can't deal with both of these. This one move here, if you're thinking, why did Bobby queen? He needed to enter onto d5, and the only way to enter onto d5 was to actually distract the rook away from the d file, and he used one of his queens to do that. Now what'll happen is Bobby will be able to get his king in and potentially guard the queening square, and maybe even push up the board. He might even be able to slowly walk the f pawn down, which will even cramp him. Yeah, it'll cramp even more. It's amazing, this game, actually. King b2, and then the pawn starts rolling up the board like we talked about. Rook d1, check. King e4. Now the king's gonna, what it's gonna do is come in, and he's not gonna be able to handle all these. Excuse me. The bishop's gonna have to someday give up the protection of g7. Someday. Someday soon, they're gonna have to do that. Rook c1, trying to take this pawn here. King d3, and if Bobby could, he's going to try to get king potentially there, or potentially pushing the pawn. He's holding on to everything. White's king is so cramped. Rook d1, king e2, and now this pawn's just gonna roll up the board. He's got a tempo, and he's just roll it up the board like that. Beautifully played. Rook c1, f3, there it comes. Bishop, yep, and now he has to give up the pawn. He has to give up the pawn. or takes, rook d7, rook e4, king f1, and he's going to try to enter via another way. Bishop d4, and then f2. And that's kind of this move is like incredible, because what next is going to happen is he potentially could play bishop takes. Let's just say that king tries to come here. This could be a potential line. I'm just showing you here, here, and then king g1 is a playable move. I think that's it. And if he tries checking, eventually what'll happen is he'll run out of checks, and then maybe it's a draw. Maybe I missed a draw. Maybe it was. This is where he resigned. I just gotta see what would be White's best move here. Okay. If he played king here, okay, king. Oh, so you don't take the bishop. If you take the bishop, it's a draw. Is it stalemate? If he checks, and then he'll have to. Oh, I got it. That's why that's a mistake. Okay, I got it. Interesting. So it's mate 22. Wow. If he plays here, he takes there, here, 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 there, queen, let's just mate 6. That's incredible. Just plain incredible. I'll keep that mating line for you to look at too. This is what Jeremy Silman says about. We'll go back to the where it ended, and I'll put a little box where the game actually ended for you. Here, only move. That's where it ended, and then I'll do. It's winning for black. So that you know where it ended is the square. So sometimes going after material entails a certain level of risk, in much the same way that giving it up might be risky. But more often than not, taking material is business as usual Acquiring stuff is merely the other side of the material coin. In fact, most games are won by taking the opponent's pieces, made possible by their blunder. Our advice via the slow and steady accumulation of positional imbalances that usually result in material gain, creating weaknesses, freezing these weaknesses, surrounding these weaknesses, and finally cashing in on these weaknesses. And you basically take it. Here's another game. Let's see how we're doing on time. Perfect. We have enough time for one more game. And it's actually one that we set up, so this should be fun. I think so. I'm not sure. We'll go over that. We'll potentially we put this end game one into our studies, the end games, but we're gonna probably, after reassess your chess, we're gonna go back over our end game again and just run through it. I have once, but I haven't done it in a while. But it's a really tactics from scratch. If you're wanting a good foundation of tactics, that's a really good book to study, because he outlays everything in sequential, and he explains it really straightforward. I gotta say, he's one of the most thoroughest explaining books that I've seen. One of them. I know there's many more out there probably that I haven't looked out that have end games or tactics as well written as that. But surprisingly, that was supposedly from his own experience. He made a journal, and he just journaled all the stuff that he learned, that kind of players their weaknesses a little bit, and he coached a team, and then he wrote that, and then he published it. So it's kind of cool that it was somebody's journal um, that they went through. It was like his journey, his chess journey, and that's cool to kind of see somebody's journey to mastery as well. This is Jeremy Silman. Oops. This is the American Open, 1993. Surprisingly, that's cool. That's black. Okay, there we go. Let's dive into this. Is a position from Jeremy Silman. Reading this, he says, reading this position, and you'll quickly realize that black has the superior, excuse me, swallow there, superior pawn structure and better placed pieces. His main target is a3, the a3 pawn, because there's nothing that he has to do. and that could defend it. He can only defend it with pieces, and eventually it's going to be overwhelmed by Jeremy Stillman's pieces, and he'll eventually take it. Yeah, I agree. Which is his main target is a3, which is attacked by the a rook, his a rook, and bishop on e7, and then the knight on c4. So black's plan through is unimaginably simple and effective. Win the a pawn. So so it's kind of like you think it's gonna win the a pawn. Look, these pieces are attacking it. This is the only defenders. And all he needs to do is bring one more piece to bear on the position, and that pawn's going to fall. But his opponent can bring another defender in. But the idea is he's trying, if he can win that a pawn, his b7 pawn becomes, or the b pawn becomes a pass pawn, which will be a thorough nuisance to white. And white will have to basically watch that little soldier. Otherwise, it'll run up the board, or like in football, when sometimes the punters kick to the other side. Sometimes that one player that gets the football, sometimes he can break the lines and get a touchdown, and that's kind of what I see this pass b pawn is. So he has the football, and on the entire team has to stop him from getting to the touchdown, which is b1, and that's what all they have to do is break the defense that would tackle him, and the only material that would stop him is the pawn on a3, and if we can acquire a3, he's going up the board free and clear without anybody stopping him. So Jeremy Stillman plays this one interesting move. Queen to b6. Exclam. The whole idea is to remove the defender of the queen. Defender of the pawn, and then he would have three attackers. Once this queen moves, the pawn falls. Offering the exchange of the queen to eliminate is elementary logic. So it's just like straight in your face. You know what? This move cries out to be played. It's as I like to say, straightforward. But sometimes the most straightforward move is sometimes missed, because some players in a position like this for black would say to themselves, why in the world do I want to trade off my queen? Doesn't that stop my attack? No, it doesn't. It actually accelerates your attack tremendously, because once those queens come off the board, this b pawn, if you can win the a pawn, ends up becoming a monster of a piece. You know what I mean? It'll end up becoming a queen, and it'll tie down so many of white's forces to stopping it that black can then counter strike on the king side and basically bulldoze their way through. So it's pretty cool. Okay. Why? Why is it elementary? Why? Because white's queen is defending a3, while black's queen isn't doing anything. Isn't doing anything at the moment. Part of the and it's not part of the a3 struggle. So Jeremy Stillman goes, hey, if my queen's not really being an effective piece, why not trade it off for a more effective piece, which would be the counterpart, the other queen? And so potentially at that moment, the queen on d8 may only be worth 5 pawns. I'm just gonna say the queen positionally is worth 5 pawns, and the queen on b3 could be worth maybe even 11 or above, because of how much it's doing. So in theory, it's a straightforward trading 5 pawns for 11 pawns. That's straightforward positionally to give the queen for that queen. And that's sometimes how exchange sacrifices have to be judged. Is that piece that I'm sacrificing, even though it's greater value at the time, is it actually positionally better for me? And when we start learning what we're learning right now, getting over our fear of grabbing material, our fear of sacrificing material, your play and your eyes will actually open up more, and you'll start excuse me, and you'll start to see deeper positions. And the world of chess, or as Gary calls it, the black and white jungle, ends up coming more real and just more beautiful, I guess. I'll leave it with that. So queen c3, it was played because white knows for sure there's no way that he can allow the queens to be traded, because I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, hey, he could just take it and then drop a knight in. Nope. There goes the knight. So no more pieces can be brought to bear to protect, because this bishop covers where the knight would come in to defend a3, and it would just be a free piece for you to take. That's why the queen can't trade. Rook a4. So Jeremy Silman says, hey, you don't want to trade? I put my queen on a better square, so it's more active now. It's probably moved up positionally, maybe a couple more pawns. And I'll just shift over a piece that isn't really doing much. Rook f e8, and I'll have 5 attackers versus, or 4, I think it's, yeah, 4 attackers versus 3, and I'll win it that way. So one way or another, that pawn will be mine. Not the only way to continue the exchange threat. Queen b5 could, or queen a5 could be played. This would be a playable line. Also very strong. However, I want to get all my pieces into the party, he says, so that's why I played this. Strong, potentially, if you want to get the queens off the board. Okay. So, okay, be blessed, play okay. I'll see you tomorrow, bro, and I'll try to get these posted so that you can watch them on YouTube when you're on, and you can kind of go over what we're learning. And so this more, if you wanted to get the queens off the board, queen a5 would be, this would get the queens off the board, and you'd still have the same ability of acquiring the b pawn. But Jeremy Silman wants to keep all of his options open, and what better than now his queen's well placed, white traded off, he's acquired a really good queen, so he's just going to bring his other piece f8 on the f8 square that's lacking any participation over to have some fun too. You remember, all the pieces need to have fun. That's what chess is about, right? Team sport. There's no I in chess. There's team. Knight f to e5. Knight b to this, and then hold on. What in the world am I missing here? I can't take on b. How do I take bishop takes on b2? Oh, it's not. I think that was a typo. Oh, no. A knight takes. Oh, that's the problem. Ah, silly me. I missed a move for black. Silly me. This held out longer, though white's position would remain thoroughly miserable and unfun to play, in my opinion. So all black's gonna do is drag the queen over, have an Alekhine gun, and basically take down this pawn. There's just too much material, and even if he doesn't want to go for it yet, he can bring a rook, a knight, let's see, queen over to a6, knight into b6, into c4, so he can get another knight in there. So it's all over but the crying at that point. Okay. So knight d. Remember, if you're wondering what piece to take with, if you have two knights that could exchange, Jeremy Silman said always look for positionally, of course, first. So don't just exchange because the piece is badly placed. Always ask yourself, what do I get for it? But if either way it doesn't hurt you, always try to take with the most undeveloped knight, which would be the knight on d7. But always weigh the positional advantages. Is it worth trading my c4 knight to potentially get queen e6, then knight to b6 and into c4? You know, I can get a knight in there, so you have to always weigh those your decisions. Okay, this knight takes, the knight takes, and the knight takes, exclam here. So we're down to 3 defenders again, and we can bring one more defender in. He actually, he says this move is actually a stronger move, the one taking. He actually played knight to a3 in this thing here. It's strong and to the point. I played knight a3. It's strong and to the point. Won the pawn, eventually won the game. However, knight takes e5, like we saw, is even better though. Because if you look at it, the reason, if you want to think about it, knight takes e4, e5 is pawn takes. Then you have queen a6, and at this point, the queen's eyeing the e2 pawn, and you have 4 attackers on a3. Not enough time to get enough compensation. If you try to defend with, we'll say, e3, you play bishop takes a3. And then a pawn falls to the board. If the exchanges happen, this b pawn becomes a hero. As I like to say, it goes from 0 to hero in a couple exchanges. And there's now really no way the e5 pawn will end up becoming weak. You can't even defend e5 yet, because if you try defending this, a pawn collapses off the board, so you can't even defend that. And then if black tries to defend there, yeah. Yeah, so that's interesting. So that's what was played. He's saying bishop c5 here is actually a better line. It threatens bishop to this move is really strong. It threatens bishop d4, and this would skewer a rook. I mean, a queen to the rook. So queen b2, queen takes b2, bishop takes b2, and then bishop takes a3. Rook takes a3, rook takes, excuse me, rook takes a3, bishop takes a3, and rook takes a3. And an extra pawn guarantees black victory since white has absolutely no counterplay. No favorable imbalances for it. Nothing. 0-0. They have nothing. So yeah, we're doing time perfect, and we actually I think there is. Let me see here. On move on bishop b2. Bishop b2. If you didn't want to play bishop b2 but you wanted to play e3, there's d4. And you really can't stop this pawn from if you tried. Nope, you can't try there. Sorry, that's my bad. Let me see here. Let's say you try this now. Queen takes, bishop takes, pawn takes, pawn takes, and then you take there. And a pawn drops off the board, so there's not really, that's really the only way that you potentially can hold. I don't really see after that anything else. If you try taking, then you get skewered by the bishop. So okay, so we'll stop at this point here, and let's say this is where Jeremy Silman, he took the pawn via this way, but he said that this line here is much better. The knight to e4 or e5 takes, bishop there, queen takes, bishop takes, and then absolutely no compensation at all. So what we've learned is from Bobby Fischer's game and a Jeremy Silman's game. We'll summarize, and then I have to say adieu on that. Is this: we've learned that you can take material, but you have to remember that you're going to have to get either compensation, which that means you're going to have to speed up your development. If you're, you don't, sorry, I have to rephrase that. If you take material, your opponent's going to try to get compensation for that material loss. So you have to weigh and look at that and say, if I take the pawn or the piece or whatever, can I get my piece out first of all? Can I unwind my position? If I don't have this, let's say I have two pieces developed and they have three, and then when I take it, they potentially can get two more pieces out for that pawn. Can I guard everything, keep that pawn, and still deprive my opponent of counterplay? And you have to think those thoughts. And if you can, then greed is good in chess, because then you could be up a whole pawn and basically win. You can get a position like this and be really happy inside. You're not sweating anymore. You're having fun because you're the one that's pushing the position. Hey, that's great. You know what I mean? So more fun at that point, not for your opponent but for you. Okay, we'll stop here and pick up the next section for a teaser. I'll leave the next section with you. Imbalance versus material. Imbalance versus material, and so we'll take a look at that tomorrow. So imbalance versus material. Okay, but right. Remember to take what you've learned from today, like what Bruce Lee says, which is to take what you know and apply it. So take what you know from our lessons and apply it. then be willing to do something with it. One second. Hold on, I gotta get a drink. I apologize. My throat went frog on there. Much better. Went dry for a second. Okay, take what you know. I'll be efficient with this. Take what you know and apply it. So take what you know and apply it. What that means is and do something with it. Maybe play a game. I would probably say 15-minute game. 3-minute games are fun, but they don't really allow you to think and tactically strategize and that stuff. So try 15 or above minutes, or even 10 or above, are better than just 3 or 5 or 1 minute ones. And then remember, choices. You have to decide. Choices are important. The choice to receive the Lord Jesus as Lord and Savior of your life is as important as if you could take that piece and hold it and hold off your opponent's counterplay. Remember the Team Chess Cruncher motto. We hang up our coats, we hang up our hats, we sit down and study when most won't. Team Chess Cruncher does, and that makes all the difference. And as Wesley So says for the Lord Jesus, as I say, God bless, and I'll see you next time on Chess Cruncher TV. Have a blessed morning, afternoon, and evening. And Lord willing, I'll be back on tomorrow, and we'll, keep pushing forward. Material versus imbalance. Or I think it's imbalance. Let me make sure. It's imbalance versus material. Okay, remember what Hannibal Smith said, that you have to always, even inside of a random position, there's always a plan. And when you find it, you get to say, I love it when a plan comes together. Okay, 2 thumbs up, hoorah, be blessed. I'll see you tomorrow, and we're going to keep having fun. Okay, bye-bye, team. Hoorah.